strange encounters with underwater UFOs and aliens, huge humanoids, and advanced spaceships. And now, based on various encounters with underwater UFOs, it appears that their vicinity is not only limited to space, but they also appear to have secret base on Earth, more specifically underwater. This is what the US calls transmedium UFOs. In other words, they go from air to water and from water to air. Unidentified submersible objects, USOs, have garnered popularity over the years, despite being far less common than typical UFO sightings. Encounters with underwater UFOs have been reported from all around the globe, and here we take a look into some encounters of people from Russia with UFOs and aliens underwater. Encounter of Russian ship Maria with underwater UFOs. First on the list is an encounter of the Russian civilian transport steam vessel, the Maria, in 1936 with a strange anomalous object while it was crossing the Pacific Ocean from Leningrad. The crew members saw a mysterious object ascend directly from the waters at some point during their journey. It hovered in the sky for a moment before landing on the land surface nearby. The captain of the ship, being intrigued, tried to contact the stray object, but it was of no use, so he sent a small boat to investigate the whole matter. But as soon as the boat reached close to the object, it abruptly sped off in the opposite direction, rendering the pursuit impossible. And along with it, the 5 members of the boat vanished in a fog that came out of nowhere. The captain tried to locate the 5 occupants, but they were not found, so he went on to complete his delivery. After completing the task, Maria once again set out to return via the same route where they had encountered this anomalous object, this UFO. On the way back, though, when they followed the same path, the strangeness persisted. In the distance, near the spot where they had first seen the object, they saw what they described as, quote, a boat made of transparent material, and inside they saw what looked to be 3 of the missing sailors who had set off in their tiny boat to investigate the UFO. When they were rescued, one of them would cry and hurl himself into the sea to drown, while the other 2 would start making up wild stories. The 2 sailors told the captain and fellow crew members that they had been abducted by the mysterious object, and for all that time they were on board that UFO and were surrounded by strange entities with webbed fingers, dressed in dark, shiny suits. Additionally, the entities had faces similar to frogs and communicated through telepathy. 2 of the sailors telepathically agreed to stay with the aliens, and they disappeared without a trace. The other sailors were presumably held captive in a chamber for 2 days. Then, all of a sudden, they were floated in that peculiar see-through vessel, eating unusual food that looked like tablets stored in see-through pockets, with presumably enough food in each tablet to keep a man alive for a day. When the 3 of the men were rescued, all of a sudden, the mysterious see-through boat drowned underwater. It was an unexplainable event for those sailors, and no one knew what had occurred. Those 2 sailors and the anomalous object were never found again, and this has remained a mystery there until now. Encounter of Soviet naval officer with underwater UFOs. Another such encounter dates back to early 1950s, when interest in flying saucers was at its peak. This encounter occurred in the Black Sea, which is surrounded by Bulgaria, Georgia, Romania, Russia, Turkey, and Ukraine. It has a maximum depth of 7,257 feet and a total area of 168,500 square miles. The account was reported by an unnamed Soviet Navy officer who had served as at the Sevastopol naval base. He said that while he was doing drills aboard a ship, he witnessed something unthinkable. He saw a metallic sphere rise out of the water, hover above a battle cruiser, and then sink back down into the depths of the waters behind the ship. This incident was witnessed by the crew members on board, and they also reported that the strange object was completely smooth, with no windows or propulsion system. It also did not make the slightest of noises. Even though a picture of the strange object was taken, no one knows where it is because the Soviet military kept the whole thing secret. Proceeding further, during 1965, a USO was encountered in the Red Sea of Israel, which lies between Africa and Asia. It occurred when the crew of the steamship Raduga was making their way through the Red Sea. The crew claims to have witnessed a fiery sphere rush out of the sea, pulling a column of water up with it. They saw the object from 2 miles away, and they were further told that the enigmatic object was about 60 meters in diameter. After hovering for some time at a height of about 150 feet, it illuminated the sea below it, and the mystery object descended into the waves with a deafening splash. The crew reported the whole incident to their seniors, but they were warned not to reveal it to the public. The incident was kept under wraps for many years until ufologists and head of the Russian Ufology Research Center, Paul Stonehill, made it public. During the Cold War, he claims, Soviet submarines made a number of reports, including one of a nuclear submarine being trailed by 6 unknown underwater objects, traveling at great speeds before shooting off into the air and disappearing. Mr. Krapiva attended lectures given by veteran officers in Soviet nuclear-powered submarines. They had served in the Soviet North in secret naval installations and bases. The lectures sometimes veered off planned presentations, and many spellbinding tales were told. For instance, episodes when Soviet sonar operators, military hydroacoustics technicians were hearing, quote-unquote, at great depths strange targets. Their submarines were actually being chased by other submarines. The pursuers changed their speed at will, speeds that were much faster than any other similar vessel in the world at the time. Lieutenant Commander Oleg Sokolov confidently informed the students that while he was on duty during his submarine navigation, he had observed through a periscope an ascent of some strange object through the water. He was not able to identify it because he viewed it through the optical system of the periscope. This underwater takeoff took place in the early 1960s. Russia's Uso Secrets. The accounts of the encounters of Soviet submarines with underwater UFOs don't end here. They even go beyond this. In his book, Russia's USO Secrets, based on evidence from declassified records and testimonies from Russian military veterans, British UFO investigator Philip Mantle mentions a number of such occurrences involving Soviet submarines. One such account of an encounter with the USOs comes from Yuri Beketov, a former nuclear submarine commander, who claims that while doing maneuvers close to the Bermuda Triangle, his submarine encountered an anomalous object. He said, "We repeatedly observed that the instruments detected the movements of material objects at unimaginable speeds around 400 kilometers an hour, that's 230 knots. It's hard to reach that speed on the surface, only in the air is it possible. The beings that created those material objects significantly exceed us in development," he said. A bizarre case mentioned in the book claims that in 1951, a Soviet submarine spotted a large underwater object measuring between 200 and 250 meters in length that was emerging from the depths and heading towards shore. The captain reportedly ordered depth charges to be dropped on the object, which at first had no impact, but eventually forced it to halt its upward trajectory, alter its route, and speed off towards deeper water. For sure, in all these cases, something seems strange and fishy, as these anomalous objects are extremely active underwater and even in the air or on the land. In December of 1977, while performing maneuvers near Novo-Georgy Island, the crew of the fishing trawler Vasily Kiselev reportedly came across a large donut-shaped object of an estimated 300 to 500 meters in diameter, that's about 1,500 feet, that rose up from the water's surface and hovered there, and as soon as the object was hovering, all the electrical systems along with the radar on the trawler malfunctioned. Surprisingly, the USO hovered there for 3 hours until it again descended back into deep waters. After the USO was gone, all the electrical equipment started to work normally again. However, despite the fact that the USO was hovering there for 3 hours, no photographs were taken. It could be that their cameras weren't working. Now, encounter with underwater, I'm saying that because I went to one of the ancient Greek temples, which was located on the ley lines of Greece, where another, actually a Christian Orthodox monastery was built over there. I was trying to take pictures and I couldn't. Only when we left there could I use my camera again. That was very strange, but that's what happens. Now, going back to this, encounter with underwater UFOs in Lake Baikal. During the summer of 1982, Major General Damyanko, Major of the Military Diver Service of the Engineer Forces of the Ministry of Defense, was conducting training exercises for reconnaissance divers in Lake Baikal. That's the world's biggest freshwater lake. It's in Russia. It's located inside the Trans-Baikal and Western Siberian military territories. The divers were in the middle of their training when they saw 3 humanoid entities emerging from the murky, freezing waters above them, dressed in tight-fitting silvery suits and measuring a huge 3 meters in height. That's 10 feet high. These entities were so enigmatic as they did not have any scuba diving equipment, and intrigued by them, the commanding officer deployed a team of highly trained 7 divers in order to capture one of the entities. The divers went in with nets in order to capture the creatures, but as soon as they tried to throw the net on one of the creatures, they were thrown out of the water from a depth of 50 meters by an invisible force. Decompression sickness, brought on by the rapid force, eventually killed 3 of the divers. It has been reported that the Soviet Union's Ministry of Defense admitted that similar underwater beings had been spotted in a number of deep water lakes throughout the country. These sightings often coincide with the descent and surfacing of giant disks and spheres, powerful luminescence emanating from the deep, and other unexplained phenomena. In addition, many extraterrestrial encounters have been reported near Lake Baikal. There's another such account reported by Oleg Chichulin, who was out on Lake Baikal in a boat instructing students and claims to have seen something really unusual. He said there was a ball that glowed, and then this ball started to fade and blush, and it turned into a red ball. This red ball for a while lay on the water and then began to sink, and all this gradually went under the water, and it became dark. Proceeding further, there's an account from 1977 in which V. Alexandrov and G. Selivestrov shut off their spotlights while exploring in the depth of 1,200 meters in a submersible to determine how far sunlight could travel. Then out of nowhere, they were showered with a strange light. They said it was so like if our device was lit from above and the side by 2 strong spotlights. Only a minute later, unknown floodlights went out and we found ourselves in total darkness, Alexandrov said. There is an abundance of such encounters, and the next report comes from Vyacheslav Lavretevich, who was sailing on Lake Baikal in his yacht. He said, "We were on the yacht on Lake Baikal, and from under us flew out a huge glowing disc. It blinded us, and for a second flew into the sky. We did not even have time to grab any camera or take video, although many of us saw it. It was huge and lit up all of our yacht. In diameter, it was probably 500 to 700 meters. It was a huge disc. For 3 minutes, it shone from below the surface, and then abruptly departed in the second. The spectacle was huge and awesome, beautiful and shocking." Extraterrestrial encounter in the Mediterranean Sea. Another account on the list dates back to June of 1984, when the Soviet tanker Gori, which was in the Mediterranean Sea at the time of the incident, was 20 nautical miles from the Strait of Gibraltar. While standing on the deck, Alexander Globa and his second-in-command S. Bolotov witnessed a strange polychromatic object resembling an upside-down frying pan emerging from the water, somewhere around 20 meters in diameter. It was described as being gray and metallic and glowing with many brilliant, bright bead-like lights. down its bottom and with waves of protuberances on the outside plating. The bottom of the strange object had a pipe protruding from it. That pipe was so fiery red that it appeared to be lit on fire. The object rolled up and down as if propelled by an invisible wave for some time. When the object saw the Arab dry cargo ship approaching from the port side, it went and hovered over the cargo ship, according to the Arab crew. Then the object shoots up in the sky, giving off sparks and flares, they said. In the same year, Alexei Korzev, the commander of the Soviet submarine, recounted an encounter in which his crew spotted two mysterious objects while conducting routine training exercises at a secret site. This seemed suspicious, as no other submarines were supposed to be present in the area. Additionally, the spotted object moved to a whopping speed of around 200 miles an hour and made sudden directional adjustments that defied the laws of physics. At that point, one of the objects purportedly launched itself straight out of the water and flew quite close to them at rapid speed. The submarine dove into the waters, and following the object, it also dove into the waters and also shot a beam that stopped the communication equipment of the submarine. It subsequently shot another beam, this time making a noise like a cutter being used, according to the team. They thought the object was now attacking them, but it suddenly reversed course and sank into the ocean below, leaving the submarine unharmed. Huge humanoid aliens underwater. Strange accounts of enormous humanoids dating back to the 1990s as well. In 1996, while shark hunting in the Black Sea, a guy named B. Borovikov was surprised to observe three very huge humanoid figures floating to the surface. The humanoids had bulging eyes, a humanoid face, and milky white body. They also had some sort of fishtail. One of the creatures appears to wave a webbed hand at him as it came closer, and then everyone swam away into the darkness of the ocean again. I guess it's what we would call mermaids or mermen. One similar account comes from the 1990s, when D. Povalyayev was hand gliding over Kav Golov in the Leningrad area. His attention was caught by huge humanoid swimmers in silvery clothes on the lake below him. Then the figures disappeared beneath the waves. The narratives we have read here leave us wondering what we should make of them. Does extraterrestrial life rule over our oceans in the same way they do our skies? It was sure that we still had not figured out the origin of these extraterrestrial entities. Whatever occurred, the reasons for this enigma are lost to history and the misplaced archives of UFO lore, and it's likely they will remain there for some time. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Kostub Jadari on Infinity Explorers. Thank you. Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.